Similarly, we have talks on art and culture. We would like to have our Indians to be united, be one, be proud of their culture, their heritage. We have a lot of talks where people from various walks of life have come forward and spoken about various buildings, various dance forms, etc. These are two examples I have given. We cover 12 causes like this in our Vishwa talks. As a first step, we want to bring in awareness among the coming generation. Our audience is across the country and sometimes abroad too. We have a rich interactive session after the talk is given by the expert. It's for any person who watches these talks to decide what they want to believe in, what they don't want to believe in, and if they have any clarifications, they're free to ask questions. After this, we want to build the skills of the people of India. Today, India is on the cusp of moving into one of the top countries of the world. But unfortunately, the skills of our people do not match our aspirations. Here at Vishwa, we started out in a small way. We started with computer training. Fortunately for us, Rotary and some people have donated computers to us. We teach 10th class students, inter students and degree students so that when they go for jobs, they don't get rejected. We teach the basics like Excel, Doc, ChatGPT, how to market. The basics we teach because most of them cannot afford computers and they have no access to them. And similarly, we have something called celebrations. Celebrations is celebrating your loved ones on their anniversaries, on their birthdays, on their death anniversaries. You can contribute to any of the causes that Vishwa showcases on its platform vishwa.org. You could, Annadanam for instance. There are a lot of people across the country who, when they go to hospitals, they come up from far off regions and the little money they have, they keep it aside for the treatment of the patient. They sleep on platforms, they hardly eat anything. And we give them food every afternoon on Fridays and it makes a lot of difference. There are similar such fundraisers. Please feel free to celebrate your loved ones with any of these causes.
Vishwa's commitment towards zero waste and the long way to go in achieving the goal begins with our material donation drive. Conducted twice a year during Diwali and Ugadi in Hyderabad, this drive collects clothes, books, toys and other used or semi-used items for the underprivileged. Contributions from over 650 plus families have benefited around 2,800 individuals, providing essential items and support, bringing hope and dignity to them. Through these efforts, we transform the waste of some into the treasure of others, promoting sustainability and community welfare.
A very good morning and welcome to Vishwa Talks. My name is Trishan, and I thank you all for attending today's event on Zoom and to those watching on YouTube Live. For those of you who have attended a Vishwa Talk before, a warm welcome back. And for our new journeys, here's a little bit about us. Vishwa Talks is a platform to create awareness amongst people and to protect our social heritage and to let people make their own decisions. Here, we invite experts to discuss and explore diverse opinions, different perspectives, various issues, problems, and their solutions on various fields, including art and culture, healthcare, environment, education, and many more. Each webinar is an interactive session with a deeper understanding of the topic at hand. If you miss any part of the session or would like to go through the previous sessions, please visit our website, vishwa.org, or Vishwa Talks YouTube channel for a full library of past Vishwa Talks on various interesting topics. Today, we are delighted to welcome Mr. Sohail Rekhi. Sohail Rekhi was born in Mumbai and spent several summers and countless weekends on the shores of Raigad district. He grew up in Bangalore, fascinated by Indian history. Sir was educated in Bangalore and Kodaikanal and went on to study literature at the University of Toronto. He apprenticed in photography and later worked in the ad films and television industries and worked as a freelance journalist. He then went on to manufacture sustainable furniture for many years, which he continues to do so. Angre is his debut full-length novel. This is his first novel, a fruit of years of research and writing. He currently lives with his wife and daughter in Bhutan. He's working on his second book, which is a children's book, also based in Konkan. As we dive into today's discussion, I would like to inform the audience that our speaker will be taking questions from you after our main talk. So please leave your questions in the chat box or use the raise hand tool, and we will allow you to ask your question in person. I request everyone to turn on your webcam for the interactive part of the webinar. Request you to keep the questions concise and short, and kindly ask one question at a time so that the other participants can interact too. Kindly limit the interaction to questions, and you can share your experiences, opinions, and perspectives in the chat box. Now, without further ado, I invite Mr. Sohail Reddy to share his insights on Sarkhel Kanhoji Angre, Lessons for Success from an Undefeated Leader. Morning again, sir.
Good morning, Trishant. Good morning, Trishant. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And glad to be, namaste, glad to be back with Vishwa Talks. And it's a wonderful platform. And the interactive session is really a beautiful part of the format. And I think this has been very timely of you all got back to me and wanted to take this further. And in the past couple of years, I've been asked a lot by people, especially in the corporate space, that what can we learn from someone like Kanhoji Angre? And we have a lot to learn, especially Shrivani ma'am in her introduction mentioned how we are India as a nation is again returning to a dominant position in the world. If you look at our history, the past 300 years have just been a blip. Prior to that, India or the Indian subcontinent and empire in China, at that time it was the Qing Empire during Kanhoji's time, they were the dominant economies of the world. Always garnering a share of 25% each around that. Through all of civilization, you can say. And these past 300 years have been a fall. We know what the reasons for that are, but we are returning to that predominant position, not only economically, but in the Indian Ocean region, in the Arabian Sea region, as the geopolitics of the world change. And as you can see today, you can say that the economic capitals are again moving back east, where they had been dominant for literally thousands of years. So let me tell you something. I've written about it, but very few people know that Kanhoji Angre remained undefeated in his career. This is a very, very special thing, very rare. I think very few people have had this ability. He took part in a battle which he did not lead, which went against the Maratha forces, against Chhatrapati Sambhaji when they fought the Siddhis. But that was the only time. And of course, he was just a young boy at that time. He was not leading it. But ever since he took charge, even as a fort commander, he has never experienced failure or a drawback, which is amazing. Even the mighty American empire, after winning Second World War, the Korean War, were humbled by the Vietnamese. And Napoleon, the great conqueror, had his Waterloo, and Hannibal was beaten by Scipio Africanus. There are very few people after him, Baji Rao, Rana Kumbha, and the Cholas, especially Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola. Otherwise, through history, there are very few people that have had this ability to uh, constantly succeed. So he provides us with a lot of uh, material to see what were the causes that allowed him this continual success. And so just I've given you a background as that period up to the early 18th century, when India and the Qing Empire were the dominant economies of the world. We were producing absolutely everything. The only thing we lacked were horses. Because of our humid climate, we were unable to breed horses successfully in India. Where we could, in places like Rajasthan and the drier parts of Punjab and Sindh, we did. And of course, the other thing that very quickly the technology transferred to Europe was metallurgy, which of course we were the masters of, especially in the Vijayanagar Empire. The Wootz steel that was created, which is more famously known as Damascus steel, then started getting mass produced in the West, and we started then purchasing swords, mass produced swords in large numbers. But other than that, we were not only high consumption nation, but a high export nation. And of course, our love for precious metals has never waned. And in exchange for all our produce, we had been taking precious metals right from the Roman period. In fact, it's well known now that there are a lot of records from the Roman period how the Caesars would complain that the people of the Roman Empire are uh, purchasing all these luxury items and hemorrhaging gold into India. And so this is the background. And let's begin with Kanhoji. Kanhoji, first thing we should point out, did not come from a very big, prestigious or wealthy family. His father was a small fort commander. Kanhoji was born in that fort, and he himself started right at the bottom. And the one thing his father, did, which is also a lesson, is that he provided Kanhoji with the best education of the time and the period of where they were. He was sent to the same Gurukul in Harnai, where the first Peshwa Balaji Bhatt went. And it was counterintuitive for someone, especially from his background, which were a military, martial people, to focus so much on education. But his father provided him the best education. He was a highly literate person, Kanhoji, and this is how he started. And by the time the end of his career, he had an annual revenue of 36 lakhs, with which he was financing the Maratha wars against the Mughals. The Marathas were a confederacy led by the Chhatrapati family, the Bhonsles, and many Dhanaji Yadav, and a lot of different Sardars used to fight the Mughals for the Swaraj, which had been created by Chhatrapati Shivaji. And he worked his way up. And during Chhatrapati Shivaji's time, the Marathas were known by the Portuguese and the English as the Sevajis. But by the end of Kanhoji Angre's time, they were known as the Angrians. And he was able to usurp 200 years of Portuguese dominance of the entire coast, right up from Calicut all the way up to Surat, and Chaul and Bassein. And this is quite a phenomenal feat in itself. And so we can see that in his lifetime and the lifetime of his two successive sons, they became the dominant power in the Konkan. Going back to his education, not his first education, of course, was theoretical in a Gurukul, but his second education was with the Siddhis. His father had him apprenticed to a Siddhi sailor and trader. And what they would do is bring goods down the Vashishti River down to the coast. All the produce was grown, of course, on the mainland. Salt was on the coast, but all the other produce, whether it was cotton from the inlands of Gujarat and Malwa and Tamil Nadu, was brought down to the coast. And from the coast, from these little entrepots, it was taken by the Europeans to their larger centers for export either to the west or further east to Indonesia, what is now Indonesia, up to the Philippines and Japan. Um, what we can see is that it was he was not the only player. Everyone had come in. The Portuguese, of course, were the first to come, but soon the Dutch, the French, the English followed the Portuguese into the east, looking for trade deals and ways of using the great amount of gold and silver they had found in South America. One must note that prior to this, Europe did not have any goods to trade with the East. But once they were in South America, they got the gold, they were able to come to uh, the East and create these trading opportunities for themselves. So, the first thing after education we can see is that from a young age, of course, it is something our parents tell us now, hard work and diligence, and constant hard work and diligence throughout his life enabled him to build certain competencies and always be on the ball, looking out for opportunities, and of course, patience. His growth was slow, but it was steady. He was very goal oriented. When he was very young, he knew that he wanted to follow in the footsteps of Chhatrapati Shivaji and become a kind of bhagyadar, caretaker of the Konkan. And by being the Sarkhel, which was the head of the uh, naval command. And this was something he focused on very deliberately, and worked towards that throughout his life. And even before he was Sarkhel, he was actually able to perform the duties of the Sarkhel. So when it came to the time of his appointment, the Peshwa and the Chhatrapati were very easily able to choose him, because though he had not got the title, he was already performing all the deeds and the necessary programs to bring about Maratha dominance of the coast. Um, the other thing is, he was also very focused on his reputation, and he was very diligent on this matter. And it was a reputation, firstly, on based on loyalty towards the Chhatrapati, and he was a great leader um, uh, in this, and exemplified the loyalty that was required to the central power to allow the confederation to work without any discord. And so he had a reputation of loyalty, he had a reputation of diligence, he had a reputation of fairness. And this was across the board, not only amongst his own people, but amongst the enemies too. So they knew that this was a practical, reasonable man who could, his word could be relied upon, and it just increased the speed of business. His ability to be fair and loyal and rational and practical. Uh, and as he grew in power, from a small fort commander, he grew to have control of the northern Konkan, and then the entire Konkan when Chhatrapati Shahu came to the throne, and Balaji Bhatt was his Peshwa. And once we have these like-minded people, the first Peshwa and Kanhoji, working in accordance with the Chhatrapati, we saw the Maratha Confederacy and Swaraj have great success, which eventually led to the rise of Baji Rao. And then, of course, the Maratha Confederacy went, as they say, from Attock in Afghanistan to Cuttack in East India. So the roots of that of the Maratha success at some level can also be attributed to Kanhoji. Um, the second thing is, once he became successful, he instituted several reforms to be able to preserve this model. At that time, the Pratinidhi Pant, who was uh, administrator for the Peshwas from the time of Shivaji, was able to uh, uh, create a system, what we basically called is a system of processes, which is something very similar to ISO certification, where even if you are replaced tomorrow, you have all your processes in place so that you do not miss a step. There was a lot of record keeping. It was knowledge driven. They were, they're looking at data points, but they did not stop taking risks or innovating. He was a great innovator. At that time, the Marathas had small gulbats, which are basically rowboats, which were stitched with twine. And but this prevented it made them flexible, but it prevented them having cannon on board. So he developed this system which is called the revolver gulbat system, where he put cannon on the front of several gulbats that chased a Portuguese ship down in a formation, whereas the first gulbat would fire onto the Portuguese ship, move out of the way, and you could tell from the first shot how you had to lower or higher your cannon. And then the second shot was made from the second gulbat, which was then a third gulbat took its place, and again recalculated the distance and took shots. So this was a great innovation which allowed him to usurp the Portuguese hegemony in the Konkan, which they held for more than 200 years. The other thing, which is, I think, vital, was reinvestment. You know, this massive revenue he got from dastaks, which was similar to the Portuguese system of kartas, duty of 2.5%, was reinvested into uh, fort refortification, making bridges, making wells for travelers, making wells for horses. Much before the Pony Express, he had his riders riding hard from one point to the other, where these horse wells and rest stops were available for both the rider and beast. And so he was innovative in a lot of levels. He basically learned with one experience. Once some of his ships were attacked right towards the end of the monsoon, and he was able to fight back. But then after that, he made sure that he would be the last person on the coast to bring in his vessels. So he would wait for everyone else to bring their vessels into harbor, because of course, we have the monsoon, and in the monsoon, the tradition in the coast is that it was a season where all you were unable to fight on the coast, so they would draw their ships in. So he just needed one experience to absolutely then implement those changes, which is something we see in the aircraft industry today. If you have an accident, they look into why that accident happened, and that is what he would do. If there was an issue, he would look into. He was not seeking to assign blame, but to discover why he was why the issue happened, and that it should not happen again. Um, can you hear me? Okay, all right. I'll carry on then. And the other thing is training. His own sons went through a system of training which you can find in the best hotels today, whether it's the Taj or the Oberoi. You start at every level, and this is the experience he had. Starting at the bottom and working his way up. And in spite of having all that wealth and position, he made sure that both his sons, Sambhaji and Sekoji, did the same. And it is because of this that they too, in their lifetimes, were undefeated. And it was just a division in the family, them fighting each other, that brought them down. But it outside forces were unable to assail them. They had to learn sailing. They had to learn about forts, fortification, about signals, and they were all given these punishment postings. Kandheri was their hardest fort, but they were all sent there, to kind of toughen them up. And this, of course, is a lesson that the Oberoi Group and the Taj Group are implementing, but it is something for family companies to really think about, that sometimes wealth and position does make you soft, and it is something that one has to really always watch out for. One has to be put through the paces and be aware of all the different angles, all, from bottom to top, what the experiences are. And if you're living in an ivory tower uh, and delegating everything, it becomes hard to have a real life experience and ability to respond to crises when they arise, when you don't have them. The other matter, something we can as a nation learn, is that meritocracy. It is something he learned from and followed from Chhatrapati Shivaji, who was a great meritocrat, and as was Kanhoji Angre. There was absolutely no xenophobia or discrimination as to who was hired. It was always the best people, regardless. They could be Dutch, they could be English, they could be Portuguese. He would poach them, uh, give them a better salary, keep them happy, and often through simple things like respect. Sometimes large paycheck is not enough, but a feeling of community, of purpose, something that Chhatrapati Shivaji was absolutely brilliant in creating, and was able to unite the whole confederacy. Kanhoji Angre was able to implement these things. He was able to work with all the communities in the Konkan, whether it was the Bhandaris or the Chitpavan Brahmins or the Desa Brahmins or the Agaris and the Kolis. He was able to draw the Muslim population, the Topashi population in the Konkan. He was able to bring them all together, And what he learned is that, though a majority of his people, of course, as India is, were Hindu, they had certain festivals. So they would return to their villages during their festival. So he made sure that someone from another community was there to replace them. And then when that community went for its holy days, he had someone from, so he was able to use it very practically and without any kind of discrimination. And it obviously worked greatly in his favor. And of course, the Indian Army and the Indian Navy is a shining example of this, which we have continued to practice, from the start of the Navy and Army. And so it's something that we should keep in mind. Um the other thing is, the last thing I would say is that he was a very frugal person. Today we have examples of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, about the lifestyles they lead. And of course, we have Azim Premji in Bangalore, great leaders and great examples. But I would say Kanhoji did this, 300 years ago, where it was not spent on ostentation, but everything was reinvested for the state. Even though he didn't have to. It was a feudatory system where people got in, like how a lot of people get into politics today to create wealth for the family. He could have done that, but he remained frugal, and he was able to spread his wealth to all the people and create a very solid foundation for the space. So, though we are separated by a lot of time, as Shivani ma'am said, we are returning to a point where we are going to have global, we are, returning to the number two position in the world. And we have to start looking at the great leaders from our past and see how they behaved at that time. And so these lessons in education, which Vishwa talks is so keen on and is supporting, is of course the bedrock of any kind of success. Upskilling, education, exposure, driven by data, by knowledge, by self-reflection, by reason and practicality, I think are the greatest touchstones and examples that we need to always hold dear to our heart. Kanhoji Angre was such a rational, practical person that the colonial system went out of its way to paint him as a debauched person. There's been ever since colonialism, of course, economically was devastating, but there was also a narrative spread that the Eastern races, the Oriental races, were not rational, were not practical. But here was a man extremely practical. When the East India Company got a bit too big for its boots, it did not attack. He did not attack them. He could have, they had no defenses. All he did is he went ostensibly fishing. He said, went out with the Kohli fishermen, they laid their nets, and he laid siege to what is now Mumbai, Bombay, the Mazgaon area. And so none of their ships carrying in the produce could come into Mazgaon to deliver the goods for further export. And the East India Company immediately backed away, and he showed them what their position is. And it was very simple: you are welcome to come here and trade. We honor the trade, but this is our country, this is our area. And they have to proceed as per our benefit. So as long as he was there, we were able to maintain this. But after that, of course, you have Clive come in right after Kanhoji and during the fall of the Angres, when the British and the Peshwas and took sides against the two brothers and were able to destroy that hegemony. Because of course people were getting worried that he's getting too rich, too powerful, because of course all the trade either came in through the Konkan or through the eastern coast in the Bengal Delta. So there are so many lessons we can learn, and that's why I have spent a lot of time researching not only the man but the time, the economy, and basically his behavior, which was always practical, rational, and though he was so successful militarily, it was not his option, because he was well aware of the loss in human life and expense. So, great user of diplomacy, uh, and he would have made a wonderful negotiator against Trump in this day and age. And we will miss him, but I hope our leaders of the day can learn from this shining example, a person absolutely undefeated in his lifetime, and created a great example for us. And in spite of the colonial narrative trying to turn him into a pirate, we have been able to reclaim this, especially our Indian Navy, the INS Angre and Commodore Kesnur and our other admirals have always given him his due place in our nation's history. And I think they need to be really thanked for this, that they did not lose themselves in the enemy's narrative and were able to reclaim and hold on to our historical and cultural heritage. And so these, I think, are the main points that we need to take away from his experience.
Thank
I
you so
think
much. Thank you so much, sir, for your insights. And that was a really nice talk. I'm just Before we move on to the Q&A, I'd like to just take 30 seconds of your time for a quick poll. This will help us get to know you better and tailor future topics that we bring to you. A big thanks to everyone who's here today. Your presence and participation means a lot. While you fill out the poll, I would like to also extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Sohail Rekhi. Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us. I'm quickly going to go through the insights that you shared with us. Uh, Forgive me if I make any mistakes, but so Kanhoji Angre, an undefeated naval leader who remained victorious throughout his career, a rare achievement in military history. Here are the key lessons we discussed. Background and rise to power, Kanhoji came from a modest military family but received excellent education. Started at the bottom and worked his way up to become Sarkhel, naval commander. Generated annual revenue of 36 lakhs financing Maratha wars against Mughals, ended 200 years of Portuguese coastal dominance. Key success principles. His personal qualities were he was hardworking, diligent, and patient, and showed steady signs of growth. Goal-oriented focus on becoming Sarkar from a young age. Built reputation for loyalty, fairness, and rationality across all parties. He showed qualities of leadership and management, meritocracy, hired the best people regardless of background. Training made his son start from the bottom, learning every aspect of operations, process driven, implemented systematic record keeping and knowledgeable management, innovation, developed the revolver Gulbat system, using cannon-mounted robots. He had a very strategic approach, learned from single experiences and implemented immediate change, preferred diplomacy over military action to minimize loss and expense, remained frugal, reinvesting wealth in infrastructure, ports, bridges, wells, practiced inclusive management across all communities. Sir emphasized that India is returning to its historical position as a global and economic power, making Kanhoji's rational, practical leadership approaching highly relevant for modern leaders and nation building. I hope I summed up the talk all right, sir.
That that was perfect, Trishant. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir. So I'm now going to invite Shravani ma'am, founder of Vishwa, to take the Q&A, initiate the Q&A session. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. Namaskar.
Namaste. How are you? It's been a long time.
In a long time. Thank you.
Wonderful talk. At a time when the coming generation has forgotten its past, or rather, not had the privilege of studying about the Indian leaders that have over the centuries, the thousands and thousands of Indian leaders, and what they have done for our country and how they have led and fought against colonialism and protected our shores, our borders, talking about Kanhoji with such passion and giving us insights about it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, absolutely, and my privilege. I myself was very surprised to find Kanhoji Angre, and more surprised that not every Indian knows about him. And it kind of became my agenda that someone so brilliant needs every Indian needs to know about him.
In fact, when you were talking about him and his strategies, talking about strategy and how to fight in a war, whether it is with the Chinese, whether it is, to make it expensive for the other side, if you can't let them into your border. I think these are strategies which our next generation should see. What did our leaders do? What did our forefathers do? I think it's amazing that you have brought this back into the forefront. Yeah, and I also
Yes.
thank the audience for being here, and Vishwa Talks for coming up with such interesting talks. I wish you'll come out with more such leaders. Every month, at least one Indian leader should be highlighted. Yeah. I'll start with the Q&A. Mr. Shmuel, would you like to ask?
You hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much on a very interesting presentation. And I want to ask you next question. How lessons from experience of Kanhoji can support us in improvement well-being of poor and low socioeconomic groups of population?
Well, I think the greatest takeaway is that there is currently we are faced with a massive discrepancy. We have a very small number of extremely wealthy people, and unfortunately in India we have a large population of very, very economically backward people, because of lack of opportunity, lack of education. And so I think we have to, as a government, always first focus on the basics of providing jobs and opportunity, nutrition and education, to the masses. And what we can see in Kanhoji, there was a great reinvestment back into his people. It was basically farmers, salt panners, fishermen who were given good cash opportunities by working in his navy and in his army during the war season, and this greatly increased the amount of wealth that was being passed around in the area, to the point that he had to mint his own silver coins because he was making so many payments. He started having to mint his own coins, and this had a compounding effect, amongst the lowest echelons of society. And I think by providing more jobs, and of course, to be able to do those jobs, not only do we need education, but we need things like nutrition, natal nutrition, prenatal nutrition, nutrition for the mothers. And of course, we have midday meal programs. I think they should be spread not just to South India, but to the whole country. Actually, in South India, we can see that our numbers are excellent. The state governments are doing a great job in providing midday meals, and the demographics point to that. Just every demographic in South India is, and I think the whole country can take a lesson from this.
Thank you very much.
Trishant, can you just re-articulate the question a little bit, if you remember?
What is this question, ma'am?
Yeah.
It was to understand how Kanhoji Angre's lessons could help with problems of uh, poor people and lower socioeconomic groups.
Okay. Just as a point of discussion, Kanhoji used a lot of fishermen and a lot of people in those areas for getting information. Is it, Mr. Sohail?
Yes.
So, and he was also fair and loyal.
Yes, he was fair, loyal, and he brought a cash economy by minting these coins, and it has a compounding effect. So once he had a policy of if you were injured or killed in battle, the family would get a kind of a pension. If you lost your leg or your arm, which was unheard of, for that time. It was just considered a waste. The person is taking a risk. But he had this pension policy where if you were injured or killed in battle, your family, was able to still survive without that earning member. And basically creating more wealth at that level is just providing sustenance, where the reason why he was also not keen on battle is that the people who suffer during battles are usually the farmers, or the fisher folk, because the armies trample through their crops, and when the armies come, they're usually foraging off the local farmers. So this pacifist, it was not a pacifist policy, but he was very mindful that the people who are providing the revenue, as in the tax revenue, are the riots, the lowest income bracket, and if they are not well taken care of, then neither is there any revenue being generated, because destruction of crops, inability for fishing boats to go out and harvest the sea. So that way he was very practical, and it was creating a space where he allowed that the class of people that were generating the food and the crops and all the agricultural produce to continue so in peace.
Also, you said, spent his money for the society and for the well-being, like building forts, shipbuilding, This also must have had a ripple effect in the society in terms of um, creating an economy out there. In addition to what you just said, that he started the pension system, most people lose their livelihoods when dies, where they have medical issues. This is what you have covered in ensuring the underprivileged are not going to further darkness. But he's also spent a lot on forts and shipbuilding, which must have built the economy around there.
In a very big way, because it provided employment. And the other thing is, the geography of the Konkan. It's a narrow strip on the Western Ghat. So the water just, during the monsoon and afterwards is flooding, and there are literally hundreds of small rivulets, all across the Ghat. So it's actually sometimes easier to go up the Ghat, travel there, and then come down the Ghat again. He did a lot of bridge building, which connected people not only for their produce, but to move around and to transport their goods also. At that time, most people used to, there was an inflated, like a stomach or something, like something like a balloon or a pot, which people used to hold on to cross rivers. But of course, you can't move goods, like that. So his shipbuilding was not only for war, but also for the transportation of goods, transportation of people. So he was able to unite the economy, able to hasten transportation of agricultural goods, and of course the employment that goes in these infrastructure projects.
Um, Another thing is, how did is Mr. Kanhoji's story taught in schools around Maharashtra or Gujarat?
Very briefly, he's hardly mentioned in a couple of lines, and that is in Maharashtra, not outside of Maharashtra. But I think, in the past few years, this is growing, and I think as I hope it gets included into our textbooks, because generally, I think if you remember from our own schooling, the effort, I mean, the focus was always on the empire, it was on Delhi. And the other parts of India, especially the Deccan, were largely ignored. So we have a lot of people from the Deccan, from the south, from the east, that have been ignored in our narrative, because the focus has always been on Delhi and the empires or whoever sat in the gaddi of Delhi. So I think we are a very massive, diverse country. As diverse as Europe. Now, if you look at England, it is no larger than Karnataka. But look at the focus on their history. You literally have a hell of a lot of material coming in from every battle has been researched. Shows have been made many times over. So I think there is a great space, whether it is Chhatrapati Shivaji, Kempe Gowda, or Hukka Bukka, Vijayanagar Empire, that we have to. I hope our writers, our filmmakers, really go into it, and it can be done from several angles. And we need to focus really on our own history, unearth it, revive it. Otherwise. It's just a lost treasure.
Are there any books, serials, or movies made on Kanhoji?
No, not yet. I mean, there is my book, and then Manohar Malgaonkar had written a book in the 50s called The Sea Hawk. So, that is why, which was a history book. So, that is the space I saw that someone like Kanhoji Angre, who needs to be a national figure, how do you get to spread, knowledge about him and about his example? So I think we as writers have to do a lot more research, and I think it is growing. Even children's book writers are now, writing about Indian subjects, and I think it's a great move forward.
There's a question by Mr. Prachit Joshi. I know my question is not about Kanhoji Angle, but would love to know Mr. Sohail sir's view on this. Would you say that the gradual decline of the Maratha Empire started after Chhatrapati Shambhaji Maharaj, as the Marathas who came to power after him started unconsciously deviating from Shivaji's design of things, which went to an extent that we may find Peshwas least or nothing about Hindavi Swaraj?
I won't say that it started with Chhatrapati. Chhatrapati Sambhaji had a very brutal death. That is not how anyone treated people of, royal lineage. And what it actually did was, after Chhatrapati Shivaji, I think, he was leading and it was going well. Then there was a massive onslaught by the Mughals. And after Chhatrapati Sambhaji's death, I think, Aurangzeb miscalculated, because what it actually did was bring all the disparate parts of the Confederacy together. It was casus belli to unite and put aside differences and move forward. But we must understand that this is a feudatory time and a feudatory system. You can see the same thing happen to the Mughals, because here at that time it is a family that is sitting on any throne and uniting people around them. So we cannot talk about it in terms of a a democratic nation or anything. You can see that Golconda, later on the Nizams, were the generals of the Mughals who then became independent. The Nawab of Bengal became independent. So the same thing happened, that if you are unable to hold the center, then the Confederacy does or disintegrate, which is what happened later on, which you can see with different heads of the Confederacy. Some of them, like the Holkars and Baroda, they modernized very fast. They the Scindias, the Shindes, they started hiring European generals to modernize their armies. And so some of them were successful, some of them were not. But once the East India Company started becoming successful, it used a very cunning policy of creating dissensions, bribing, and slowly it was able to break the Confederacy down. I think Abdali's attack would be the death knell for the Maratha Empire, because at that point, whoever sat in there, by that time the Mughals were finished. It was, the Gwalior arm of the Marathas that were actually providing protection and ruling in the name briefly, for the Mughals. Even when the English came, you had to get your firman from the Mughals. So that was a kind of a central authority, which was protected by several people. So I think Abdali's conquest and the third battle of Panipat, which Dr. Uday Kulkarni has covered fantastically, broke the whole confederation, and the losses suffered there were very irreversible, I would say.
Is it people say that the Britishers did not win against the Mughals, but actually the Marathas? So is that correct? And if so, for how long were the Marathas holding power? Which people?
The Marathas were dominant for quite some time. And see, actually, the Mughals, after the last Mughal in 1707, last powerful Mughal was Aurangzeb. After the demise of Aurangzeb, his sons and grandsons were only emperors in name. And you had regions like the Sayyid brothers, or the Asaf Jah and people like that, who were in charge. And at one point, it was the Marathas who were, protecting the Mughal family. So, of course, yes, the British did not. I mean, there was no Mughal Empire. It had crumbled to pieces, and what there was a Maratha confederacy that had dominance over most parts of India. Right from Bengal to the northwest, and coming all the way down to Bangalore and Tanjore even.
So which period was this?
This was in the end of the Peshwa period, so we are talking about the late 18th century, 1790s and around then. So around 70 years after Kanhoji Angre. I would recommend anyone interested in this period to get books by Dr. Uday Kulkarni, who is also a Navy surgeon, and I think the best historian for this period, the Peshwai period. And he has done a lot of new research. And so Dr. Uday Kulkarni's books on the Peshwai and Panipat would be very illuminating to these facts. It is called the Lost Maratha Century, which was around 50 years. It wasn't a century, but it was 50 years, which is a very long period. We can say from 1730 to 1780, 1790. And then, of course, you see the East India Company come into dominance over the next 50 years.
The movie Chava, do you think it projected history as it is, or was it a movie to create division? What is your opinion on that?
No, I don't think there's any, it had any intention to create any division or any such thing happened. We should just be mindful of the fact that, the ruling powers did not see themselves in terms of Hindu and Muslim. It was always family based. And the Mughal Empire was quite frankly a Mughal Rajput Empire, which large caste support in the administration. And Aurangzeb's greatest desire was to have someone like Chhatrapati Shivaji on his side. But Chhatrapati Shivaji's vision was much greater, and it was, rooted in self-governance, therefore Swarajya. And so I think there's now, a dichotomy between Hindu, Muslim, which has not always been, if you study history, it is a very fluid thing, and these divisions aren't always so simple. Now, we kind of inherit this, especially post-partition thing, that it is a split between Hindu and Muslim. But no, I don't think Chhava had any intention of, But I think, see, it is great that, Chhava, it focuses on basically Sambhaji Maharaj, who had a very brief reign. You can have. I think there's great space for people to do this more and more. Chhatrapati Rajaram was in Jinji, in on the west coast of South India. And his story is also very fascinating. So I think the more we focus on our history, why not? Everyone has a different perspective. The English had a perspective on Kanhoji Angre. I have put forth my perspective. Someone else can put forth their perspective. I think perspectives, the more the merrier. And, it leads to discussions. It leads to a more varied and a richer picture. So I think Chhava was great in its ability to create interest in that period, and its success, becomes like uh, for other producers to say, yes, we can do history, right?
Yes.
So
What about we were known for shipbuilding, they said. So anything on that and from this period?
uh, we have a tradition of sailing, that goes back to the Indus period. And Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal has headed a project where they have made a stitch ship which is sailed to Oman. So actually now in the southern Arabian Peninsula they have found actually ancient Harappan trading sites and settlement sites. So we have a great history of shipbuilding which we really need to focus on now. Of course, our shipbuilding was primarily in wood, but it's something that is indigenous. It's something that we have a great skill and experience in over millennia. And I think we, of course, now, of course, it's welding and all that, but it's something India really needs to focus on because China has a stranglehold on shipping, and we really need to focus on this shipping tradition. And we can see how we were able to innovate and take this brown water navy and defeat and subjugate a blue water navy. And had Kanhoji, I think, uh, stayed on for a longer period, or the Angres themselves had not had the issue, we would have been able to dominate the whole Arabian sea area, which is now, of course, where all our oil comes in, and I think our navy is quite focused on.
I'll just quickly share about the upcoming talks and then have a few more questions and close the talk. The upcoming talk is on 14th February 2026. The title is Leadership in Energy Transition, Building Resilient and Sustainable Businesses. That is about renewable energy, about how industry should take over and slowly transition to renewable, sustainable energies. Yeah, the speaker is Lieutenant Colonel Monish Ahuja, Lieutenant Colonel Monish Ahuja, CMD at Punjab Renewable Energy Systems Private Limited. Yeah, and quickly I'll ask, there is an acknowledgement from Mr. Prachit Joshi. Thank you, Sohail sir, for answering my question and writing a book on Kanhoji Angre. Yeah, another question. In the Mughal times, you said it was feudatory times, and there were the different Nawabs and all who have uh, the Confederation has disintegrated and the Britishers have taken. So, what is the history between um, that area, Maharashtra, that area, the coast, to Portuguese, to Britishers? What is the line of control? I mean, what happened? How did it move?
Well, actually, earlier on, before the Portuguese came, before the Deccan Sultanates came, there was various kingdoms, the Rashtrakutas, Chalukyas, uh, in this region. and the Portuguese took over the Konkan from the Bijapur Sultanate. And of course, they were constantly fighting the Bijapur Sultanate, the Ahmednagar Sultanate for domination of these areas. So, the Portuguese came here a very long time ago, and there's this church close by. I'm currently in Mumbai, in Bandra, which is 50 years older than the Taj Mahal. And, people find that hard to believe, but it's a fact. So they've had a long presence. They were the first to come and the last to leave, the Portuguese. So they had, by the time Kanhoji was around, 200-year presence on the Konkan coast. But this was, of course, taken over by, they had taken over from either the Bijapur Sultanate or from the Rajas in Kerala and Malabar. So, the kind of chain of command is from the sultanates, who these sultanates also provided a great, they were a highly syncretic society. People talk about the Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb of North India, but actually you will find the greatest syncretism of culture in the Deccan. And they successfully fought the Mughals and delayed Mughal advance into it. Kind of gave Chhatrapati Shivaji's grandfather, Maluji Bhosle himself, was fighting against the Mughals 50, 60 years prior to that period, when he was with the Bijapur and the Ahmednagar Sultanate. And of course, Shahaji Bhonsle was the Senapati of the Bijapur Sultanate. But Shivaji was able to carve out his own kingdom.
So Portuguese were there 200 years prior to Mr. Kanhoji, Angre.
Yes, yes. For 200 years, they had been in dominance, and then Kanhoji was able to subjugate them. They did not entirely leave, but then the British came into dominance.
And there was a Rani Abakka or someone at a couple of 100 years ago before that. She
Yes.
can you tell a little bit?
I don't know too much, but what I'm saying is, like, someone like Rani Abakka has to be, I hope someone comes up with a novel that can, a well-researched novel that can reach, the entire nation. And I think people from every state need to bring their state heroes to a national level. Like, I'm studying in Karnataka, we were told about Kempa Gowda, but no one in Maharashtra knows that, or maybe even in Telangana or Andhra or Tamil, so I think each state has to kind of export its heroes and, these leaders and these narratives to the rest of the country.
Excellent. Great thought process. There is one more question. Are there any records? This is from Adil Desai. Are there any records of Portuguese ships being taken over by Angre, and what happened to them after he died? Are there any? Yeah. Are there any ships
Yes.
that were preserved
Oh
of that?
no, they are not. No preserved ships. Earlier on, they used to make the ships out of European oak, and they did not have a very long lifetime. When they came to India, of course, we're the source of the greatest hardwood in the world. We have teak, sal, rosewood, the works, but basically teak was used. And of course, then the life of the ships greatly increased. Kanhoji successfully took over several, not only Portuguese galleons, carracks, men of war, but also swifter and slightly smaller English vessels. None of them have survived. Wood, especially in this humid climate, it does not survive. And, it has a limited, what is left are, stone cannons. His dockyard outside Vijayadurg can still be seen on Google Maps. but there are no, waters are also very warm. So everything gets kind of, recycled, if you can say. So unfortunately, we have no old vessels in existence.
When they say that Kanhoji Angre used a strategy of layering with the forts, what do you mean by that? Like
Layering.
he the forts strategically.
He had that time a telescope, what is called a spyglass, had a distance of around 30 kilometers. Excuse me. So he had a fort right down the coast every 30 kilometers. So one fort was always could see. He had a system of signals using these, like rockets, like how we use during Diwali. So, a similar system that was used to communicate. And he started constructing fort complexes. So earlier on, it was just a single fort. Then he would build a fort on the mainland if the fort was an island fort. Sometimes a complex of 2 or 3 forts. And this became quite the norm, where he was able to protect, various sides of, the fort. He also, this is a absolute genius. He built a wall in the sea in Vijayadurg. So he literally had quite modern technology for the age, a wall built in the sea. So when ships approached, they would get stuck on that wall. So they could not come close enough to fire their cannon. It was quite a architectural feat and engineering feat, but he did this, in the 1700s. So it's quite fascinating.
Another question here from T. N. Mahesh. It is said Peshwas destroyed the sea power which helped them during the 27 war. Is that true? And if true, why did they do that?
Because actually there was a Kanhoji was succeeded by his eldest son Sekhoji, who passed very soon. Then his second son Sambhaji, who also passed. And then the Angria family was divided between Manaji and Tulaji. So the Peshwa and the British, supported one Angria against the other, and kind of destroyed their power because they had become extremely powerful. And unlike Kanhoji or his elder 2 sons, there was that sense of loyalty to the Chhatrapati was not there. But please be mindful of the fact that the Peshwa actually was the first minister of the Chhatrapati, who had now outgrown the Chhatrapatis themselves in power. So it was not an action supported by the Chhatrapati, who was the titular head, but by the prime minister, who had superseded his master in both power and fame. So this is a testament to the confederate structure, which of course has to be managed and controlled by a very strong person, which we found in Chhatrapati Shivaji. And even in Chhatrapati Shahu, he was able to consolidate. So but it's politics. You can see the same thing happen actually today, where you have different factions of parties. They break away, they form alliances. So it's changed. Now it's more in a democratic way. That time it was, of course, in a feudatory way.
Somewhere around the world, people used forts up to the 17th century, right? And they became unnecessary after that. Was the period correct? Am I correctly talking about the periods? And then what happened? Why did forts become unnecessary after that?
Because of firepower. firepower and siege technology. Basically, in today's day and age, our cannons or weapons or whatever guns you have, artillery guns. A wall does not provide the security. So now we are not uh, that interested in making forts. Earlier on, you protected your citizens. Also, they took refuge in the fort. People lived around in villages around the forts, and when there was an attack or something, they would come and seek refuge in the forts. But today, with our kind of weaponry, they have become it's become kind of meaningless. So after the 18th century, you see that in the First World War, or even in the Napoleonic Wars, by that time, cannon power had become so phenomenal that the fort had lost meaning. You could just take these massive cannons up to the fort wall and breach them. And of course, then dynamite came, and that absolutely changed the equation.
Okay. And there's another question here. Um, did Kanhoji Angre fly the flag of Marathas in Andamans and Nicobar Island?
No, I have never come across this at all. But I must say, there's a very interesting fact that Tamil author, I forget his name now, unfortunately, had written about. There's a whole, swashbuckling series written in Tamil, many decades ago about Kanhoji Angre. Of course, not all of it is based in history. It's he's using Kanhoji Angre as a character. So maybe in that there is some reference to that, but in historicity, no. He never. There was the Marathas were not involved in the Andamans. At that time, the Andamans, they may have a strategic, need now, but at that time there is no agriculture. The most important thing is agriculture and population. You have to have the people to either farm the land or to fish the seas. So that was
So,
the economy. The basis of the economy was that.
how were the Lakshadweep Islands used by the Portuguese, British, and the Angles?
The Angrias never ventured that far. They never needed to. They realized that they had to control the coast and the sea routes coming into the large entrepots on the western coast. So Maldives at that point, again the change in technology, aircraft carriers, the use of whatever fossil fuels. That time, people traveled on sail, so one was restricted by the monsoon and by the wind. Now, of course, we need places to refuel, we need places to fix our carriers and things like that. At that time, it was a control of the sea lanes, basically.
A lot of islands between Africa and India, though the Britishers had ruled them, had not come to India. At the time of independence, why were they declared independent of India?
I don't know. Actually, even at one point, Dubai was administered, Aden was administered through India, through the India office. So, I mean, you can look back. I mean, I've always felt that you can't leave a country so large and powerful. I mean, the fact that we were broken up into what is now three nations has been very expensive for us. We have lost a large population on both ends. And of course, you can see the state Pakistan is in now. It's teetering on the edge of collapse, where the local population has no electricity, nothing. Industry, everything has collapsed there. uh, when there is flooding, there's no recourse. So, of course, the power of of the India that used to be has been greatly lessened. So now, of course, we see the whole issue in Diego Garcia, the group of islands, which I think has been given to Mauritius. Imagine if all that was, part of the Indian empire. We'd be an extremely, extremely dominant force and one to watch out for. I don't think any colonial power would have, willingly left us in such a position.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've pretty much covered all the questions that have been asked. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, Trishant.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
It's good to talk about our local heroes, and I wish that if there are speakers across the country who would like to speak about the local heroes of their area, I wish we could host more such talks. Thank you so much. And there is a participant, T.N. Mahesh, who was talking about the author you suggested. It's the writer Sandilyan.
Sandilyan, thank you, Mahesh, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sandilyan, yes.
You-
Hope everyone reads.
I think you unmuted me for me to speak.
Yeah,
I fell in love with the character called as Kanhoji Angre. I came across Kanhoji Angre only through Sandilyan. His novels were okay. There was some. He referred mostly Manohar Malkunkar. He has written
Right.
most about Kanhoji Angre, and I went to libraries and got through his books and his description of Sindhudurg, Vijayadurg, etc. Everything was as it is mentioned mentioned by Manoj Malkunkar, Manohar Malkunkar. That's the way it is.
Right.
So I am also basically Maratha, and our forefathers came here along with Shivaji when he came down to southern Tamil Nadu. And we are very few people, very packets, some packets, Marathas are there here. I can speak Maratha, but I think तुम्हाला अर्थ होईल का मला कळती नाही मला तुम्हाला समज आलं का मला कळती नाही बट थोडक्यात मी मराठी बोला ना मी बोलायचं मराठी बरोबर माझ्या परिवार लोक नीट बोलतील मराठी बोलतील मी बोलतो बोल्ड करून सांगतील तसं नाही okay that's it so I have always romanticized about the Marathas under Shivaji and really Shivaji is a hero to me. Kanhoji also is a hero to me, really like that. And I may know for what purpose this is being conducted. Do you want to retell the history, or is there any purpose behind it? Other something extraneous?
You're asking about Vishwa?
Yeah.
We have these talks to protect our heritage because the younger generation is no longer listening. I would love it if my daughter, my son, my grandchildren, if they hear to these local heroes. I would love it if people of each state, as Mr. Sohail had said, would know. Today, in any school, there are only two pictures, Gandhi and Ambedkar. They do not know any other local heroes.
Yes.
They don't know their history. And this is only one aspect of the kind of talks we talk. We talk about environment, we talk about mental health issues, we talk about Ayurveda. There are a lot of causes we do. The thing is to protect the social heritage and to pass it on to the coming generations.
That's very laudable, the objective. And about the 27 years war, nobody is aware of that. Either I don't know anybody is aware I don't know, I'm from Tamil Nadu, and we are not being taught about the 27 years war. After that, Shivaji is just passing for one page or 2 page history, 1 page only, not even 2 page. Then immediately go to Peshwas. Before, in between, there was 27 years, Marathas were fighting against them, against the Mughals. So that aspect, even the NCRT books are not touching on that part. NCRT books by Modern India by Vipin Chandra, I have gone through it. Specifically, it says just one para, just glosses over it and goes. After 27 years, suddenly he came, or the Peshwas came. What happened during the 27 years? So those things, I think, should be, those stories should be narrated to our children. That's what I feel.
Schools should have a library of the kind of books that if any child is interested of learning of a particular hero or a particular period, the school, the NCERT books, even if they are not able to cover the whole topic, should give reference books and read and learn. Like Sohail had been guiding us on a number of books as he was giving us the speech. I think it's important that the NCERT books give references to all these books.
Sohail Regisa is an author?
Yes.
Yes, I am the author of Angre.
Angria. Oh, that's the book. Okay, okay. I would like to go through that book. I like to buy and see what is written because Angria, they are one of my heroes. I want to know more about them.
Okay.
I'm
Thank you.
sharing the chat.
Thank
Sharing
you.
the link of the book in the chat box.
Yeah. I will go through it. I will go through it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. With this, we close the talk. Thank you once again.
Okay, then. Anything else that you want to? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Namaskar.
Vishwa team for coming up with interesting talks every week.
And thank you, Shrivani ma'am, for all your support and your, laudable focus on this very important issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to request both of you to join into the breakout room link that you'll see on your screen shortly. And I'd like to thank all of the participants who are with us till now, till the end of the session. I hope to see you next week again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.